The tale begins, oddly enough, with our boy Ash Williams from Sam Raimi's Evil Dead series as he makes his way to the gates of heaven. It is in his time here in the afterlife that he encounters a buff and fleshy, protein-hungry version of the Marvel hero called the Sentry, helping himself to the horrified citizens in line. Trying to stop the guy with his trusty boomstick, it would have no effect, and our hero would be smacked by the zombie bro, sending him hurtling through another dimension. This new world would be a variant of the Marvel Universe called Dimension 2149. Here, this Earth was a near mirror copy of the classic Earth 616, full of the colorful costumed heroes that we all know and love. Knowing that zombie Superman was hot on his booty, Ash went to warn the Avengers of the danger, only for them to think the guy was crazy and had him sent to the police for blowing up their intercom. Guys, you just don't treat Bruce Campbell that way. I don't care who you are. Receiving a distress signal about mysterious purple lightning in the middle of New York, our heroes went to investigate, only to see good old Ash was telling the truth, and they were greeted by the ever-hungry zombie Sentry. The dude then ripped through the Avengers, promptly infecting them with the mysterious plague. Within seconds, the infected heroes' blood began to boil, where they vomited out their insides, eyes rolled back into their heads, and instantly transformed into savage but still sentient undead. They then began sprinting into the streets of New York and began completely devouring every confused and horrified citizen who stood in their path. Not even heroes like Spider-Man could resist the hunger and brutally unalived and ate their families. With things quickly getting out of control, a hairier and less tanner than usual Nick Fury gathered the remaining supers that he could find aboard the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier so they could rally forces and save any humans left against the growing apocalypse. The outbreak was so bad that it even caused foes to become friends, as we saw the likes of Magneto save and join the X-Men in the battle against the undead. Scientists like Reed Richards was charged with finding a cure by studying the virus, while Tony Stark was charged with building a portal that could access the multiverse so the survivors could escape to another world. With things quickly getting out of hand in the streets below, the fate of the world rested upon Tony and Reed to finish their projects. While things seemed hopeful with Tony completing the portal, this timeline would soon take a trip further into hell, as we see that Reed Richards during this time had went absolutely insane after losing his children to a zombified She-Hulk. Believing this virus to be the next phase of evolution, the crazy taffy stretchy man then proceeded to purposefully infect his fellow Fantastic Four members, who in turn infected him, as they then brutalized their way through the helicarrier to make their way to Tony's machine. Seeing that the device was complete, the Frightful Four were delighted, as this would give them unlimited num-num access to the multiverse. Knowing Tony's zombie big brain would come in handy, the group proceeded to feed on him to get him infected, while a horrified Nick Fury pushed the machine away from the cannibals through the nearby corridors. Reaching the end of the hallway, Fury ran into a group of surviving heroes who escaped the battle below as he sealed off the doors to buy them time. Knowing this was the end of their world, Fury had Thor destroy the machine so that way the multiverse would be spared of this unholy fate. Breaking the door down harder than a parent with no respect for privacy, the Zombie Four tore Fury to pieces and infected the other heroes present. With a new squad to add to his growing zombie family, Zombie Reed had the heroes take the broken teleporter to the Baxter building so he could work on repairing it and spread the undead gospel. Once the likes of Quicksilver was infected, the virus soon became a global pandemic, leaving the majority of heroes infected and most of the population consumed. With little to no food left, the still brilliant Reed was able to patch the machine enough where he was able to communicate with a younger version of himself from the Ultimate Marvel dimension who had a multiverse portal of his own. Thinking this was awesome getting to chat with an older, just for men touch of grey version of himself, young Reed wished to meet this Reed in person, so he fired up his end of the portal, creating a bridge between their two worlds. Upon setting foot in this ghastly Earth, young Reed quickly discovered that he got scammed harder than an old lady who just sent her life savings to an African prince. Being attacked by the Zombie 4, Ultimate Reed managed to get away through the city sewers. Thinking he was in the clear, the dude was sorely mistaken when he got to the surface and was met with possibly the most rank smell ever, which was an entire zombie superhero army. Being webbed by Zombie Spider-Man, Reed thought it was all over, that is until it got cloudy with a chance of metal meatballs, as we see dozens of cars rain down on the Horde, exploding into the ravaged streets. The attack came from a still-alive Magneto, who led the young man to the subways where he was keeping a small group of humans safe. Telling the gang that the bridge to their world was still open, Reed, Magneto, and the group made a plan to escape, that is until they were sniffed out by Zombie Wolverine, who led the group to them. Being the typical savage that he is, Magneto crushed the attackers with an old subway train, where they made their way to the surface. While they thought they had made a safe getaway, they were sadly mistaken once again, as they ran into the colossal zombie giant man and several others. Planning to fight to the death, the heroes were miraculously saved by Ultimate Susan Storm, who rendered the zombies' optic nerves temporarily invisible. With the help of the other Ultimate Fantastic Four members, Magneto and the rest managed to make their way to the portal with the recovered cannibals in hot pursuit. Reaching the device, Magneto nobly stayed behind so that way he could close things off so everyone else can make their escape. Refusing to let Magneto do this, the mutant forced the heroes through, while he used his power to create a magnetic explosion that destroyed the machine and injured countless undead in the process. Awakening from the devastation, Magneto was met by the salivating angry glances of several zombie Avengers. Swearing to get revenge on the mutant for doing this, the heroes chased after Magneto, only for him to show he was still quite resourceful and brought the fight back to them, which resulted in Colonel America getting his head severed and Spider-Man getting his leg literally broken in half. While it seemed our man would hold off the Horde and escape, Zombie Wasp sadly cheated by shrinking down and bit the dude's neck out when he wasn't looking. The heroes then took advantage of this opening and literally ripped poor Magneto apart, resulting in a violent and disturbing end for the once feared X-Men villain. With bellies full of mutant meat, the Avengers then wondered what they would do now since they were all out of food. The zombie gods must have answered their zombie prayers though, as the boys soon encountered the most unapologetically naked man since Dr. Manhattan, the Silver Surfer, who arrived to the planet. Arriving on behalf of Galactus, the man told the Horde that they would perish as his master would soon come to devour them all and the entire globe. Wishing to get a taste of this meaty Oscar award, the zombies completely ignored him and went straight for his shiny bald head. This then resulted in a brutal battle which saw dozens of zombies get blown apart by the might of the Surfer's power cosmic blast. With undead heads getting popped left and right, and even Wolverine completely tearing his arm out of socket against the Surfer's seemingly impervious flesh, it would seem the dude would make a getaway. That is until a freshly transformed Zombie Hulk showed up, got his face fried, but then came back again and bit the Herald's head right off its body. With the glowing lifeless corpse falling to the ground, a lucky group of homies such as Spider-Man, Luke Cage, Wolverine, Colonel America, Giant Man and Iron Man all got a taste of this foreign cuisine. After consumption, the boys realized this meal was packed with way more than just protein, as they now absorbed the Surfer's powers, which allowed them to shoot Cosmic Blast as well. This then temporarily fixed the food shortage problem, as they then used these powers to fry up their friends and eat them whole. Like a microwave reheated piece of pizza, the zombies admitted that their fellow zombies tasted terrible and were now back to having nothing to eat. Before they could cry and sing Kumbaya, the boys soon came face to face with the biggest stake ever, and that would be Galactus himself. Demanding to know where his herald was, the lads informed the big space wizard that they kinda ate him and were still hungry. Furious at these words, Galactus rained hell down upon the Horde in the form of his power cosmic beams. Knowing that this was an Elden Ring boss way out of their current play level, the zombies made their way back to Hank Pym's lab so they could form a plan of attack. It is here that the brilliant minds of Hank Pym, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner were able to make a giant Metal Gear-sized cannon that would allow them to combine all of their powers into one unified blast. Once the big gun was done, they wheeled it outside, aimed it at the Titan and fired Power Ranger style, sending a giant sky beam to pierce the alien, sending him screaming to the ground in pain. Super excited for this giant spicy snack, the boys went in to feast, only to run into some rude food moochers, which was their former villains. Trying to bully their way into this meal, the villains quickly discovered that these heroes were no longer holding back and were viciously slaughtered with their new abilities. After the carnage, the lads were shocked to see that Galactus was still alive, who began to get up and plot his revenge. Not leaving room for any openings, the Avengers attacked like mutant Pikmin and latched onto the Space Titan, where they began the most epic and bloody Thanksgiving feast of all time. 5 years later, we see a ship arrive back to Earth, which consisted of a still living Black Panther, several other survivors, and a cured zombie wasp head in a swanky new robot body as they investigated the planet. Seeing that the Earth was now deserted, the team wondered just where the zombies could have gone. We then cut to an alien planet which was preparing to go to war against Galactus, only to see that the dude was not exactly feeling himself, and that it was actually our zombie pals who had inherited his powers and matching uniforms as they pillaged this world and countless others in pursuit to satisfy their never-ending hunger. The next part of the tale opens up with our galactic-powered zombie heroes making their way to the Skrull home world. Not knowing exactly what they were dealing with, the Skrull army opened fire on the heroes, but as you can expect, they were no match and began to be ruthlessly slaughtered and devoured by the starving savages. They would show no mercy whatsoever, as we even see the likes of zombie Spider-Man find a terrified Skrull mother and child hiding under a bed. Not only would he eat the pair, but he would also mock their terrible hiding space, all while sporting a crazed devilish grin. This full-on planetary genocide would actually find its way to the main Marvel Earth Black Panther, who had been teleported here with his wife Storm and fellow Fantastic Four members Human Torch and Thing. The group had been taken to this dimension after coming in contact with some mystical multiverse frogs, and were quite surprised at the hell they had stumbled into. After escaping the likes of zombie Luke Cage, T'Challa worked with some of the remaining Skrulls to send a transmission to this Earth, which put him into contact with his variant, as we know from Chapter 1, was still alive and had begun rebuilding what was left of humanity. After having to neutralize some super zombie Skrulls of their own, Panther and the others' days only got worse, as they were then attacked by the zombie supers, who planned to use the mystic frogs to get to other worlds and start their feast anew. However, the Panther gods were in T'Challa's favor, for right at the last second, they were able to use the frogs to teleport back to Earth 616 before they could get turned into zombie chow. Aggravated they had picked the planet clean and lost their one-way ticket to the multiverse, the zombies wondered just what to do next. That is, until a stroke of brilliance hit Zombie Hulk's pea-sized brain, where he told the group that he was so hungry he could eat the entire planet. That then jogged the shambling lad's memories that since they now had Galactus's powers, they could actually do just that. The boys then powered up like zombie Super Saiyans, and then used these abilities to straight up devour the planet, which they claimed was absolutely delicious. For the next 40 years, the zombies then continued this non-stop planetary devastation, that is until they eventually reached the edge of reality and discovered they had killed and eaten almost all of existence. Along the way, our boys even picked up some new zombie friends, which consisted of the likes of Gladiator, Jean Grey powered by the Phoenix Force, and even a zombie Thanos. Now, as imposing as a zombie Thanos sounds though, our purple brother would not last too long, for he got his head cheeks clapped in by Zombie Hulk after he made fun of him for eating all the food. Rest in peace, Grimace. Devastated to think they may spend the end of time starving, the zombies wondered what to do next, until Iron Man's memories began to come back as he remembered the multiverse teleporter he had constructed back when he was alive. Further elaborating that Reed Richards had fixed the machine and used it to escape this reality, Zombie Giant Man told the group that they needed to go back to Earth as it was the only way to get the machine back so they could access the cosmic buffet. During their travels, we start to see a different, calmer side of Spider-Man, who told Luke Cage that he was feeling odd and that it felt like his hunger was actually starting to fade. Coming back to Earth, we see a young boy navigating the streets of what used to be New York City. During his travels, he hears what appears to be a scream coming from beneath a pile of rocks. Thinking that someone was in trouble, he came to the person's aid, only to be met with a rather horrifying sight, which was the severed, but still sentient head of Zombie Hawkeye that was cut off by Magneto all those years ago. Having lost his hunger and reverted back to a near childlike state, the head asked for the boy to help him and to get him out of there. We then discover that this boy is actually the grandson of the still living Black Panther, who was wise to the acts of these zombies and knew not to trust him. Promising he would not eat the boy or bite anyone, all Hawkeye wanted was someone to talk to. Knowing his grandfather T'Challa would know what to do, the boy picked him up and carried him back to the compound. Honestly, this is kinda sad. Sure, if I were that kid I'd feel bad, but no way you could ever pay me enough to pick that thing up. Honestly, I'm burying it back under those rocks and never going there ever again. We then see the castle located in the middle of the city, which the remaining people have now called New Wakanda. Here T'Challa, who is now an old man, rules over what is left with his wife and several other mutants such as the former X-Men Forge. While most of these years have been a peaceful rule, we see that trouble has begun to brew as a young radical group of mutants called the Acolytes saw T'Challa as too weak to rule and wished to overthrow him. Claiming that he would not be here forever, T'Challa proposed that it may be time for him to step down, that is until a cured, but still very zombie wasp entered the room and claimed that it did not have to be that way, for one bite from her could make him live forever, but he'd be a zombie. This proposal though was quickly shot down by Black Panther's wife. Atta girl. See boys, our wives always got our backs. They'll never let us become immortal zombies, even if we wanted to. Before they could get too deep into Game of Thrones political discourse, the young Kashamba presented his newfound pal to the throne room. Absolutely mortified at this discovery, the men told the kiddo to place the creepy dead Archer Man's head down so they could figure out just what to do with it. We then briefly cut back to our cannibal boys and girls road trip as we see them feasting on the gooey fleshy remains of none other than this world's version of Ego the Living Planet. Rest in peace, Kurt Russell. Back on Earth, we see that T'Challa had brought Hawkeye's head to the new Wakandan head scientist Reynolds, where they placed it in one of Wasp's previous robot bodies. Later on, we then see the leader of the radical mutant group mentioned before, who went by the name of Malcolm Cortez. The insane and most likely racist leader then allied his fellow seemingly racist incel army to organize an assassination attempt on Black Panther's life. One of the men armed with a knife had managed to sneak into T'Challa's bedchamber, where he stabbed the king as he slept. Being instantly awoken by the surprise attack, Panther fought back, only to have his stomach sliced open as he was still dazed and wounded in the dark. Alerted of all the noise, Wasp burst into the room and zapped the attacker with her blast as she tended to the mortally wounded Wakandan king. Knowing that the man had mere seconds to live, Wasp resorted to the only option she could think of, which was to bite the man square on the neck, infecting him with the virus. Just like an addict going back to a substance, Wasp's hunger returned, where she went to consume T'Challa's wife, only for the newly zombified warrior to slam her into the wall, telling her to leave his queen alone. Knowing that they had to eat someone, the pair got resourceful and ate the would-be assassin instead. Honestly, bro, good riddance. Nobody does that to Black Panther and lives to tell the tale. Horrified at what he had become, Panther locked he and Wasp in the Wakandan vaults so they could fast until their hunger disappeared. After spending some quality time in isolation, the hero's hunger vanished, Panther was finally given some band-aids to cover up his leaky gut, and they went to confront Cortez for trying to unalive their beloved ruler. Before any justice could be served though, the gang was oh so rudely interrupted by the zombie Cosmic Avengers, who arrived just in the hellish nick of time. Delighted to see so many human snacks were still alive, the zombies announced their plans, only for Hulk to get sick of all the chit-chat and went right to work on as many survivors as he could get his hands on. He was promptly stopped by Giant Man, who told the big boy to cool it, otherwise they would be right back to where they started. He then proposed to the team that they could take advantage of these remaining people by turning them into a human breeding program, creating an unlimited food source for their unending zombie appetites. Being too evil, even for him, Spider-Man's morality kicked back in, where he blasted off part of Giant Man's head and tried to talk some sense into him. Noble as Spidey's speech was though, it was not enough to change the hungry man's mind, and it caused mass infighting amongst the zombie heroes. Taking advantage of the distraction, Panther and Wasp got the remaining humans to safety back in the castle, while they projected an impenetrable shield around it, locking out the hostile undead. However, the aim of the shield was not exactly perfect, as a still very hungry zombie gladiator was trapped inside with Panther and the rest. It also cut off poor Luke Cage's legs. Hey man, at least now you have an excuse to skip leg day. This then resulted in a gruesome battle that resulted in Panther getting his heart ripped out and Spider-Man getting his arm torn out of socket. While it would seem like our heroes were doomed, they were soon saved by the X-Men Forge in a repurposed Iron Man suit, who beat the living snot out of Gladiator's face while he held him in a headlock until Spidey and Cage used their cosmic powers to pop his head like a purple pimple. Knowing that there was no way through the shield, the remaining zombies decided to go back to their initial plan, which was getting the multiverse machine back from Reed Richards' Baxter building. Upon arrival, things would seem quiet, that is until they were swarmed by the building's sentry bots, which had been mysteriously turned back on. This is revealed to have been the work of Forge, who had taken the portal years ago and had actually had it at New Wakanda this whole time. As brilliant as he was though, for some reason he could not get the machine to work. Knowing that the zombies would return after they discovered they were duped, the heroes prepared for war. With the team being outnumbered, Reynolds revealed to the boys that he and Forge had a secret weapon that may just be able to help. While secret weapons are normally cool and awesome, this one wasn't so cool or awesome, as it was revealed to be a zombified body of T'Challa's dead son, where they had implanted the brain of Colonel America, who was killed by Red Skull years ago. No amount of family therapy is fixing this one. Infuriated at what they did to his boy, Panther attacked Reynolds for hiding this from him, only to be ruthlessly beaten by this Frankenstein Captain America. T'Challa pleaded for his son to recognize him, but it was no use as his body was only a mere shell for the remains of Colonel America's zombie brains. Before Frankencap could kill T'Challa, he was stopped by Spider-Man, Luke Cage, and Reynolds, who got the guy to calm down and realized that they were all on the same side. Forge went to help T'Challa, only for the guy to wallop him right in the face for desecrating his son's body. Attaboy, T'Challa. Honestly, best zombie in this whole series is Black Panther. Rallying their group, T'Challa and the other heroes met their zombie foes at the Shield, who were not too happy at being tricked by Forge from before. Being the Kenobi-level negotiator he was, the Wakandan king told the zombies that they could have access to the portal if they left the survivors in the palace alone. With a great turn of events, Giant Man and the rest showed more civility than ever, where they actually agreed to these terms. Instructing Reynolds to lower the shield, this then ended up being a double cross by Panther, who had the shield placed back up all around them outside the castle so they could duel to the death and keep everyone inside safe. As we know from before though, Reynolds' aim with the shield was not exactly the best, as Zombie Iron Man was right outside when the thing went up, allowing him an all-you-can-eat access inside the castle, while the other undead went to full-on war with each other. Stark's luck would run out though, for he quickly realized he came to the wrong neighborhood, where he was greeted by Frankencap, Forge, and a whole group of racist powered-up mutants. You know, I never thought I'd want to see Iron Man get trashed by racists, but here we are. The battle outside and inside would go from bad to worse though, as T'Challa would be smashed to pieces, Wasp would have her head clapped off her body, and a thought to be sedated zombie Bruce Banner would awake and go after Reynolds, where he would mistakenly lower the shield again, allowing all of the undead inside. Delighted to get some post-combat snacks, the Avengers rushed to where the survivors were being held. Ripping their way through the door, Giant Man went to dine, only to realize that something was terribly wrong. In a crazy plot twist, the zombies, like T'Challa, Wasp, and Spider-Man, realized that their hunger too had faded. Coming back to their old selves, the zombies felt immense remorse for the mass genocide they had caused for the past 40 years. Attempting to make amends, things would quickly be cut short though, as Zombie Hulk burst through the wall, ready to help himself to a big ol' bowl of human chili. The Avengers tried to hold the big guy back and stop him, but it only made the hungry Hulk hungrier and angrier as he began brutally slaughtering the likes of Jean Grey, Hawkeye, Firebird, and poor Tony Stark, whose heart he crushed like it was an anthill. Demanding for the carnage to stop, Reynolds offered himself as sacrifice to the unstoppable Mad Giant. Gladly taking Bro up on this DoorDash offer, Hulk tore into the guy, only to quickly realize that his hunger too was now gone. This then caused him to turn back into Bruce Banner, where he pleaded with the heroes to end him so he could not hurt anyone else. The boys immediately obliged, where they popped the guy's head, resulting in a quick and honestly disturbing end for the Incredible Hulk. After the battle, the heroes cleaned up the devastation and held a funeral in honor of the souls that their fallen friends once were. Later on, they made their way to the teleporter, which Forge and Malcolm had somehow managed to fix so they could go to other worlds and get supplies to help rebuild this world that they had destroyed. Not all was as it seemed though, as this whole rescue mission was all a plan set up by Malcolm, where he revealed that the only reason the machine was not working before was because he had stolen key components from it long ago. He then told T'Challa that he was the one who had organized the death of his son those many years ago, and would soon have his grandson Kashamba killed as well, so there would be no lineage of the Black Panther left. Before the team could react, he teleported them to worlds unknown so he could have the throne of New Wakanda all for himself. Horrified at what he had just witnessed, Forge tried to get the heroes back, only for Malcolm to beat the old man to death with his bare hands, screaming that the zombies were someone else's problem. Man, I've never wanted to see someone get eaten by a zombie as bad as this guy. The story opens up in the murky, desolate swamps of Florida on the main Marvel dimension, Earth 616. It is here that we see the C-list superhero team called the Command responding to a distress signal near Orange County. This rather colorful Suicide Squad-esque team consisted of the heroes such as the half-man, half-machine Siege, the Atlantean sorceress Jennifer Kale, the immortal 16th century warrior the Conquistador, and the alien space hippie called Aquarian. Tracking vital signs to a nearby cabin, the group came across a band of badly wounded, seemingly decomposed Florida residents. Seeing that there was a survivor, Siege went to help the woman, only to discover that this Florida woman indeed lived up to the title of being a Florida woman and was actually a zombie who took a huge chunk out of the dude's face. Seriously, Florida and Ohio are like the Silent Hill and Raccoon City of the US. Stay away from both locations at all times, folks. This all ended up being a huge ambush for the horrified heroes, as we see the likes of Conquistador get ripped apart by the swarms of zombies and Siege dragged into the murky waters by the merciless undead. As the remaining team members battled the zombies, we see their team leader hiding in the shadows waiting to strike. This ended up being a zombified, but still very talkative undead Deadpool, who jumped into the fray to help his hungry homies. The quick-moving mercenary then made his way to the powerful Aquarian, where he infected him with the virus. Using his power to stave off the infection from fully taking over, Aquarian blasted off one of Deadpool's arms to loosen his grip, and then worked in tandem with Jennifer Kale to launch the dude into a nearby swamp skiff, where they turned on the fan and blended Deadpool into a nice crimson protein smoothie. With the infection's power growing stronger, Aquarian went to comfort his comrade Jennifer, who was fully drenched in Deadpool guts. Crying in pain as he tried to keep his transformation at bay, Aquarian knew that the only way to protect his friends was to enter a mystic hibernation pod in an attempt to expel it. Just as Jennifer thought the nightmare was over, our poor girl was quickly proven wrong, as the freshly zombified hand of Siege emerged from the swamp, grabbed her, and attempted to turn her into a tasty sorceress snack. Getting her ankle broken by the zombie's cybernetic strength, the woman crawled to a nearby shack with the zombie Terminator torso in hot pursuit. Before the dude could get in a bite, his cyborg side kicked in and realized his biological side had been compromised and hence decided to neutralize it. Without his control, Siege's AI took over, grabbed his pistol, and exploded his head all over the horrified Jennifer Kale as she sobbed hysterically over what just happened this night. Honestly, no amount of showers or therapy will ever help this poor woman recover from this. Later on, this night from absolute hell was investigated by the alternate reality monitoring agency called Armor, who was basically like S.H.I.E.L.D., except they protected other dimensions from each other. If you're a Morbius fan, well, you're in luck, because during this time, our beloved vampire was the head scientist for Armor, where he and the other doctors studied the virus's effects. Seeing how dangerous this was, Morbius concluded that they needed to send a team to the Marvel Zombies dimension Earth 2149 to get a blood sample from a living human there. With this blood, he would be able to create a vaccine for Earth 616 heroes to prevent this world from suffering a similar fate. Instead of sending puny meatbag human heroes to get the job done, Armor played it safe, as they did not want to risk any of these Avengers from becoming infected. Therefore, they recruited the cool coat-wearing android Aaron Stack, aka Machine Man, due to his inability to become infected. After getting the full breakdown of the mission and what he was up against, the hero justifiably said the heck with this, and was not about to stick out his neck for these humans who honestly could care less about him and android kind. He, and I'm sure most of our minds, were quickly changed though when he found out that his escort for this mission was his ex-android girlfriend, Jocasta Pym. Suddenly going to a zombie, superhero-ridden hellscape suddenly doesn't sound all that bad, does it, boys? Working with armor director Little Sky, the hero used his portal opening abilities to access the zombieverse, where he acted as the driver to bring the androids to their hellish destination. While the mission seemed like a good enough plan, we soon see that things were much more sinister than we thought, where we see Dr. Morbius retreating to his room late that night. Upon entering the room, we are greeted to a rather shocking sight, which is yet another Morbius, bloodied and tied to a chair. It is revealed that this is in fact the real Morbius, and the one who assigned this whole mission was actually his zombie variant from the zombieverse. While we could debate on how a vampire could become a zombie all day, we simply don't have time for that. The only thing that we have time for is Morbin time. We then cut to our heroes, who finally made the trip to Earth 2149. Literally less than 5 minutes into this godforsaken world, the duo was immediately attacked by a group of flying zombie heroes and villains who were delighted to see some fresh grub after so long. Biting and tearing into the pair, the zombies were quickly disappointed to discover that they were robots, with Zombie Falcon miscalling Jocasta a mannequin. Totally not cool with these grubby, slimy dead men touching her, Jocasta activated her inner Homelander and used her laser eyes to promptly fry these dudes to a crisp. Joining in on the fun, Machine Man then used his buzzsaw to slice into the zombies, proclaiming he was quite excited to kill as many fleshies as he wanted. After saving his babe from the gang, Machine Man noticed that Zombie Vulture was trying to get away. He then activated his sick, heat-seeking missile launcher to toast the dude before he could warn the others. After repairing Jocasta's injured leg, the pair sensed a large human presence inside a nearby mansion. This mansion actually ended up being owned by a zombified kingpin who had taken control over the remaining undead once the super zombie heroes left the planet after the events of Marvel Zombies 1. Sneaking their way inside the building, the androids then see a portal open up where we see a zombie Black Bolt and fellow members of the Inhumans arrive. They are greeted by Kingpin and Zombie Jackal for a self-proclaimed dinner party. Here is where we see how Fisk was able to secure this level of power that he did. Working with Jackal, the pair had managed to create a full-on human cloning program, thus making an unlimited food source for anyone willing to work for this new cannibal crime syndicate. Witnessing the brutality of these monsters as they tore these human clones apart, Machine Man and Jocasta soon came across Kingpin's uninfected wife Vanessa. The woman reveals Fisk's literal undying love for her as he managed to keep her safe, where he had his men bring her things like cat food to eat while they feasted on clones. Honestly, not too horrible. I'm sure her protein intake is absolutely crazy from all that cat food. Jocasta then revealed her mission to the woman, where she allowed them to take a sample of her blood so Armor could create the vaccine and save their world. As the two then went to make their way out of the mansion, Aaron caught a glimpse of the clones being torn apart by undead, which triggered some PTSD from his past, where he saw they were being treated just like his robot brothers on his world. Totally not letting this slide, Machine Man told Jocasta to report back to Armor and get the sample to safety. He then activated his awesome-looking armed cannons as he leapt down into the demonic dinner feast as he blasted the hordes below. As the carnage went on inside the zombieverse, we cut back to Earth 616 as we discover that our boy Zombie Morbius was an inside agent this whole time, and this whole vaccine mission was a giant ploy to mass manufacture the virus itself so the zombies could turn Earth-616 into another undead dimension. With Jocasta waiting for export and Machine Man going full Robo John Wick, the two were completely unaware of the Grand Master plan. That is until Machine Man hit the zombies so hard that he fell through the floor of the mansion and stumbled across the remains of a zombie Doctor Strange meditating in a secret room. The hero witnessed the half-brain-dead magician projecting a window into another world, which just so happened to be the main Marvel dimension, Earth-616. It is here that Kingpin revealed himself, and in classic villain fashion, gave an extensive monologue of his plan to use Morbius to spread the gospel of the hunger virus to other realities. Thanking the big man for giving away his whole dastardly scheme, Machine Man went to blast the cannibal crime boss, only to be attacked by a zombified Medusa. Aaron then promptly blew her and her mutant weave to pieces, where he made his way outside and was met by a zombie Ghost Rider. Seeing this as a great chance to flex his real-life GTA carjacking skills, Machine Man used his hand blade to slice Ghost Rider's head off, stole his sweet bike, and rode it through the cloning lab, which blew it up, permanently ending Kingpin's food buffet. This may be one of the most underrated cool moments in all of Marvel history. Come on, give this guy a movie already! Infuriated, a rather smoky Wilson Fisk then ordered the undead speedsters at his disposal to chase after the droid so he could get revenge on what he had done. This then resulted in a full-on high-speed chase throughout the city, which eventually came to a fiery end after one of the zombies got caught up in the wheels of the motorcycle, where he of course got turned into a bloody tomato paste, which then resulted in a giant explosion that hurled Machine Man into the subway below, leaving his robotic body battered and torn. Back on Earth-616, one of the armor accountants was doing some research into Morbius's research and discovered that the numbers did not quite add up. As she went into his bunker to confront the guy about it, she then discovered the battered body of the real Morbius, who warned her of the danger behind her. The poor woman was then met by zombie Morbius, who was rather delighted he no longer had to hide who he truly was. The man then unleashed Jared Leto's darkest thoughts and lunged at the agent, where he bit into her, tore her arm off, infecting her with the virus. She then made her way out of the room, where one of her comrades asked her what happened. Within seconds she turned and infected the man, causing the virus to spread like wildfire throughout all of Armor Industries. Coming back to Earth-2149, Jocasta was met by Director Little Sky so they could get the sample back. Believing Aaron to be dead, Jocasta said her goodbyes, for they did not have much time. Arriving to Earth-616, Jocasta made her way to Morbius's lab, where she finally discovered what was going on as she witnessed the man tearing into the corpses of the fallen armor agents. Calling out to Director Little Sky, who also was dealing with an infected horde of his own, Jocasta fled as she was chased by Morbius and his growing undead militia. Things would not be faring much better in the Zombieverse, as we see the fallen Machine Man greeted by the shambling corpses of some zombie superheroes who were not too pleased at the guy for messing with their food supply. Going to torture the bot's remains for his actions, this is actually revealed to be a hologram set up by a still very active Aaron, who is delighted that these undead fell right into his trap. He then activated his flamethrower, roasting the vermin as they screamed out in immense pain, even using Scorpion's tail to whack his head off like a roasted zombie golf ball. Hearing the rushing feet of the remaining zombie speedsters, Machine Man rigged the end of the subway tunnel with razor-sharp wires shot from his fingertips. Completely oblivious to this Looney Tunes-style death trap, the boys ran right through it, eviscerating their body to pieces. Out of nowhere, our boy was attacked by the Inhumans' teleporting dog Lockjaw, who was out for a fleshy squeak toy. Using his stretchy mechanical arm as a dog leash, Aaron was able to tame the pup, where he tore off a piece of his coat and had him smell it so he could get a lock on Earth 616, where Machine Man was from. As Jocasta continued her assault on the undead to protect the multiverse teleporters, they then hear a portal open up behind them, where we see our boy Machine Man and his new puppy pal, where he proclaimed that he was here to kill zombies and chew gum, and due to him being a robot, he hated gum. He then blasted the zombies to pieces, where he took one of their brains, attached a bomb to it, and threw it to play fetch with Lockjaw, of course for him to catch it and be blasted to smithereens. Just when Aaron thought he had secured the win, he was viciously struck from behind by zombie Morbius, who was not about to let an android get in the way of his cannibal plans. It is here that Morby possibly gives one of the worst and simultaneously best lines in comic history, where he proclaims that he was a vampire and a zombie, thus making him a Vambi, and that he could not be stopped. God, it's a shame that such Oscar-worthy dialogue is tucked away in this hidden gem of a comic. Before he could kill Machine Man, zombie Morbius was stabbed through the chest with a tree by the real Morbius, who had escaped his captivity. Laughing at his twin's actions, the undead vampire claimed that such monster movie tactics would not work on him, only for it to absolutely work on him as we see the man crumble to dust in mere seconds. Slaying the last zombie, which was good old Captain Mexica, Machine Man proudly boasted on just how he saved the world, where he was greeted by Jocasta, where the two embraced and shared a blood-covered robot kiss. Looking on through Doctor Strange's mystic window, zombie Black Bolt asked Wilson Fisk on what they would do now that all of their food was gone, only to see that the guy had killed and eaten Vanessa, where he told him that he eats when he gets upset. While things would seem resolved, the epilogue would reveal that things were not quite over, as the armored director showed our heroes that during this battle, someone or something had managed to use one of the teleporters and had managed to escape the facility. Taking full responsibility for all of this getting out of control, the real Morbius offered to lead the team of the Midnight Suns to investigate this remaining undead threat and save this Earth from the zombie virus once and for all. And that is the full story of Marvel Zombies Chapter 3. For so long I had put off this story because it did not focus on the main characters from the original Marvel Zombies, but once I literally sat down and read this, I'm so glad I did, because this was truly an incredible tale. It introduced me to awesome characters like Machine Man and Jocasta, and I honestly cannot wait for them to get an MCU debut because of their dynamic in this. The zombie virus was so close to destroying Earth 616, and if it was not for them, the main Marvel dimension would cease to exist as we know. For any of you who have not read this comic, I would absolutely look into getting a copy, whether physically or online, to support the writers and artists' imagination and time that went into this. Marvel Zombies is one of my favorite Marvel comics, and I cannot wait for the upcoming show on Disney+, even though it most likely cannot live up to the legacy that these books created. More than anything, I would love to know what you think. Have you read Marvel Zombies 3? Is there something I missed? What other stories should we cover? Sound off in the comments. Also be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed today's content, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon to be notified of all of our latest videos. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the music in this video, the intro and outro were made by my boy Ognihs. You can check out his Spotify in the link below. You can also check out our Discord, also in the link below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you are awesome and loved. God bless, and I will see you in the next one.